Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. This is your weekly dose now of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. We've got so much that I want to talk about that happened this week. Obviously, I want to go over the debate between Governor DeSantis and Nikki Haley. Also, the Trump town hall. Chris Christie bowed out of the race this week. That is a big deal. You had Charlemagne, known as Charlemagne da God, that regrets voting for Joe Biden. We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about the New York City schools that were forced to take on illegal immigrants while kicking their students out and forcing them to homeschool. You have a representative, Yvette Clark of New York City, that has given up the ghost. She wants more illegal aliens to come in because she wants more power. And also the persecution of Donald Trump continues, and Hunter Biden's stunt. All of that and more coming up on this edition of the Carl Jackson Show. Please stay tuned. Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. I'm glad you could join me today. Guys, we've got so much to talk about. So much has happened through the week that it is absolutely insane. But this week, obviously, what we witnessed was a big debate. I mean, it was a doozy. You had the debate between Governor Ron DeSantis and Governor Nikki Haley. Also, Trump did a town hall the very same night. And I want to discuss all of those things, but I want to start off here. I want to show you some video for all of you that have listened to my podcast or watched my show before. You guys know that I'm not the biggest Nikki Haley fan, all right? Now, Nikki Haley, I have nothing against Nikki Haley personally. I want to make that very clear, but there were some disturbing things that I thought happened in last night's debate where I don't want Nikki Haley anywhere close to the White House, frankly. Now, guys, this is my opinion, okay? I offer my opinions. That's what I do here at the Salem Podcast Network and also on Salem News Channel. That is what I do. So this is strictly my opinion. If you're a Nikki Haley supporter, I am not mad at you. We have free speech. We have the right to vote for whomever we would like to vote for in the Republican Party during the primary process. So if that is your girl, so be it. I'm not knocking that whatsoever. But for me, I don't want Nikki Haley anywhere near the White House. I want to play some audio for you and some video for you from. This is from CNN. They had a panel discussion after the debate. Now, typically, listen, guys, let's be honest. CNN is a left-wing rag. I don't even believe it's a liberal rag, but they had some fair panel discussion, I thought, yesterday. And I want to play for you what one of the panelists had to say, and we'll have some more video as well. This is going to be a jam-packed show. Lots of audio and video that we want to bring you. Lots of things that transpired this week that we think are very important for you to be aware of. So without any further ado, Mr. Gabe Cassiano, let's go ahead and run that video, por favor.
I'll answer Abby's question. I think DeSantis won tonight. I think the first 12 or 15 minutes didn't help either of them. I thought the initial squabbles made them both look fairly small, frankly. But I think DeSantis settled down as the night went on, and Haley, to Axe's point, continued to be rattled. I think Haley drastically overplayed her hand on this website business. Yeah. I think it hurt her. I think it cratered her throughout the night. And it sounded like someone, to me, the more she went to that well, like someone who couldn't defend their own record. I mean, it became this crutch. It was like a rhetorical sandwich board. And it didn't, I think the more she went to it, the more annoying, frankly, it seemed throughout the night. I thought the immigration exchange, to your point, was critical, and I thought DeSantis won on that.
Okay, so now listen, that was audio from a panelist on CNN, and I think he absolutely got this right. You know, when I was watching the debate, I was so frustrated. I had to keep my composure. All right, I really did. I really had to keep my own composure because Nikki Haley, what she continued to do was rattle off this website, whatever it was. It was about DeSantis lying. We've got some video that I want to show you of Nikki Haley in her own words lying, frankly, and And the reason why I'm doing this, again, I'm not a fan of Nikki Haley. I make no bones about it whatsoever. Is she a better candidate than Joe Biden? Yes, but I do believe that Nikki Haley types are bad for the Republican Party, and I tell you why. I don't believe that she's a person with conviction. There's a difference between supporting certain policies, or at least saying you're in favor of certain policies, and then having the conviction to make sure that you carry those policies out. Now, I thought she was a decent governor for South Carolina. Frankly, I thought Mark Sanford was a better governor until he got caught up in his crazy affair and all of that stuff. But nonetheless, I thought she was a decent governor. But Nikki Haley's problem for me has been that she will cater to the left. She's done so with identity politics before, and this is something that is very disturbing to me. She will say one thing, and she will tend to do another. She totes her UN experience, and listen, I was impressed by Nikki Haley at the UN. I love what she had to say. I love how tough she was in fighting back and talking the way that she spoke to the dictators around the world. But speaking to dictators harshly and forming foreign policy are two totally different things. All right, so that was Nikki Haley. Here's another video that I want to show you, or at least audio. You guys may have heard this. Obviously, Chris Christie has dropped out of the race. I think this is condensed audio, but there were that we have, but I don't know who he was speaking to, but in a hot mic situation, he explained how Nikki Haley had spent, I believe, $68 million, that Ron DeSantis had spent, I believe, if I recall correctly, $59 million. He had spent 12, and the message that he was sharing that, never Trump, never Trump, never Trump, just was not appealing to voters. They just didn't want it, and he was admitting that off air on a hot mic, and frankly, I'm always suspect of these hot mic situations. Obviously, sometimes there is a hot mic situation. Sometimes I just wonder if people want to be heard, and so they rattle things off, because you kind of know at this point in time, right? If you're a public figure, be careful of mics all the time. But here's what Chris Christie had to say about Nikki Haley, and I believe he was spot on. Let's go ahead and roll that video audio, por favor, Gabe.
Let's not forget she spent $68 million.
Yeah.
I mean, we spent like
Well, when you give land to China and places like that.
Yeah, that's what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, she spent $68 million so far, just on TV. Spent $68 million so far, $59 million by DeSantis, and we spent 12. I mean, who's punching above their weight and who's getting a return on their investment, And she's going to get smoked, and you and I both know it. She's not up to this.
she hasn't even been
And she's still 20 points behind Trump in New Hampshire, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he's still going to carry Iowa, right?
Yes, always. I talked to DeSantis, called me, petrified that I would.
He's probably getting out after Iowa.
Well,
All right, so now the mic drops after that. So apparently he was saying, I don't know what he was saying, except that DeSantis called him. Perhaps, I'm assuming he was going to say petrified, that he would endorse Nikki Haley. I don't think a Chris Christie endorsement makes that big of a deal. I would assume that anyone that was for Chris Christie would likely go to Nikki Haley. I would assume, but then again, I don't know. But yesterday's debate, I think, was a very important debate. For the main reason is this. Listen, even if you're a Trump supporter, and we'll talk about some of the things that Trump said at his town hall, including he's already made his VP pick, assuming he gets the nomination. And if the polls are correct, he will get the nomination. But Iowa hasn't happened as of yet. If there's an upset in Iowa and New Hampshire, I believe there will be a different story. But I know a lot of people might be disinterested in a Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley debate. Let me tell you why this debate is extremely important. Republicans have to begin to think long term. There's going to come a point, even if Trump is the nominee, even if Trump becomes president, that there's going to be a post-Trump era. I don't know who he's going to pick for VP, but I'm not impressed by any of the names, frankly, that I've heard thus far. And so that person, that VP, may likely be heir apparent. If you get someone that's kind of a wishy-washy conservative, a Nikki Haley, a Christie Nome that claims credit for not locking her state down when it literally her legislature had to twist her arms to make sure she didn't lock her state down. She was wishy-washy when it came to men competing in women's sports. She was wishy-washy on a lot of this stuff. And frankly, at the time, I defended Christie Nome, thinking, hey, well, listen, I understand what she was trying to do. She wanted to make sure the legislation. And when I went back and I read this stuff, I was like, wait a minute. She caved. She caved. She was weak on that issue. So this is what makes this debate so important, because it is determinative of where the Republican Party will go in the future. Are we going to be a party of establishment type GOP like Nikki Haley, who basically are part of, I don't want to quite say the uniparty, because the Democrat Party has gone so far left that they're virtual communists at this point, or virtually communists at this point? Or are we going to be the party of strong conservative leadership? Now, I've heard a lot of people say, well, Ron DeSantis is an establishment guy. Ron DeSantis is guys, that's just silly. The best candidates in the race by far are Trump and Governor DeSantis. And why? Because they have a record you can go back on. DeSantis has been the most conservative Republican that I think we've seen in probably a generation at least. Trump has been one of the most conservative presidents, or the most conservative president that we've seen since Reagan. These people have a record. Nikki Haley has a record too, and her record in South Carolina, she did some good things. But she also did some things that I thought were fairly liberal. All right. So the question is, where is the party going to go? And that is what this debate was all about. So when Trump says he's already made his VP pick, listen, I'll be frank with you. I am hoping that it is not Nikki Haley. I am hopeful that it isn't a Christie Nome. I know that he does want a woman. I know that he does want to appeal to different voters, independents, and the like. And I think he should. But I think that appeal should be done based upon policy, not identity politics. Guys, you're listening to the Carl Jackson Show. We'll be back after the break. You guys stay tuned. Welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. We are reacting to the DeSantis and Haley debate last night, as well as the Trump town hall. And again, some of the things that I want to share with you before we move forward, some of the things that Trump said in the town hall, because we don't have a lot of video for the sake of time. But he did mention that he would, or he has already picked his VP pick. He's also said that all of the illegal aliens that are in the country, he said that he would deport. He said that was something that we absolutely had to do. And I'm paraphrasing, but that it was important that he said that. You might recall that the former president, his first 2 years when it came to illegal immigration, it wasn't great, but his second 2 years were absolutely phenomenal. So that's very important, and it's very important for all of these people. When Trump says it, I believe it. When DeSantis says it, listen, you can like him or hate him, but the guy is a man of conviction. I've seen it here myself in the state of Florida. When the guy says something, he means it. I'm not convinced that Nikki Haley means it. So Trump did speak about picking his VP already. He did speak about the borders and making sure that the illegal aliens that are in this country go back. And guys, I got to tell you, I'm sorry, we should not be waiting and hoping for a Trump presidency or a Republican to come save the day in November of 2024. I have some video that we'll be showing you later on in the program where this crisis at the border, needs to end right away. And Republicans can do something right now, despite the fact that I know they have a very thin majority. But I think there is enough frustration around the country to end this invasion that is happening at our border. But before I get to that, let's get back to Governor Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. Let's go ahead and roll this video. Por favor, Gabe.
Governor DeSantis is hitting you for claiming the retirement age is, quote, way, way too low.
I have never once said that.
But what we do know is 65 is way too low, and we need to increase that. We need to do it according to life expectancy.
I never once said Hillary Clinton was an inspiration.
I often say that the reason I got into politics was because of Hillary Clinton.
I never said government should go and require anyone's name.
false.
A huge issue that I'll deal with as soon as I get there is social media. They need to verify every single person on their outlet, and I want it by name. What I have always said is boys go into a boys' bathroom, girls go into a girls' bathroom. But hold on one second.
When I was governor, they wanted to bring in a bathroom bill, a transgender bathroom bill, and I strong-armed and said, we are not going to have that in South Carolina.
She said the law shouldn't get involved in that. And I just ask you, if you're somebody that's going to be the president of the United States and you can't stand up against child abuse, how are you going to be able to stand up for anything? That is the truth. We have it on video.
When a 12-year-old child in this country assigned female at birth says, actually, I feel more comfortable living as a boy, what should the law allow the response to be?
I think the law should stay out of it, and I think parents should handle it.
Okay. All right, but what about when the left uses the law to force parents or indoctrinate parents' children with all of this sexual stuff? What should happen then? Listen, guys, I understand that we live in different times. We live in a post-constitutional America, and there are times where government is needed to stop the onslaught of communism and socialism. We're in that era right now. And Nikki Haley, in my opinion, shows that she's a big government Republican that will stick her hands in the wind. And listen, she made her case. She's a corporatist. There's no doubt about it. She's down with the big corporations. And quite frankly, as Republicans, I think a lot of us were there. I used to be there. Hey, give them all the tax cuts they need. Now I'm of the opinion, listen, man, if you are down with China, you're not necessarily down with the United States of America. You don't get tax breaks if you're doing so much business in China. You know what I mean? You're not going to get the tax breaks here in the United States of America, and you're not going to be able to hold on to if you're so in love with China, you're not going to be able to hold on to your patents here in the United States of America. That's the way that I feel now, because a lot of these people inside of these major corporations are completely woke. All right. And they're cultural Marxists. And they've been brainwashed in this way. And Nikki Haley seems to fit. In my opinion, Nikki Haley rose with that crowd. And I'm extremely uncomfortable with that. All right. Now, let's go ahead. What do we have next, Gabe? Just go ahead and keep them rolling and I'll respond to them. So, again, this debate. And you can just go ahead and start them, Gabe. I'll stop talking as soon as they get rolling here.
So you want to talk about leadership, and he wants to go and demean and put down. Let me tell you what leadership is. Leadership is the fact that I went into South Carolina that had 11% unemployment rate. Leadership is the fact that we turned it into an economic powerhouse, building planes, building cars, building tires. We were named the Beast of the Southeast. We moved the 11% unemployment down to 4%. We announced jobs in every county in the state. We moved 35,000 people on welfare to work. We changed our prison system to where we now have the lowest recidivism rate in the country. We passed voter ID. We passed tort reform. We did pension reform. We paid down our debt. We cut taxes. We made sure that people were proud again. We did E-Verify in the first 6 months, not 5 years like Ron. So don't go and pick on school choice and say that that's leadership. Okay. When I got to the UN, we cut $1 billion off the top, and we took the kick me sign off of our backs, and America was respected again.
Okay. So that is Nikki Haley on her leadership in South Carolina. And listen, when it comes to South Carolina, let's be honest. South Carolina, as red as it is, picks some pretty moderate candidates, whether it's Nikki Haley, whether it's Lindsey Graham, whether it's Tim Scott. Guys, I love you in South Carolina, but let's be honest. As red as South Carolina is, I'm always fascinated about how they pick a lot of moderates. But frankly, We're talking about different times. We're talking about a different era. You know, Nikki Haley, her record, it's amazing to me because I was watching her conflate Ron DeSantis's votes last night and as a congressman with his role as governor. And Ron DeSantis was part of the Freedom Caucus, so they were fighting with a very few small number of them, trying to push the Republican establishment to the right. And she didn't mention that, and of course she wouldn't mention that. Now, this isn't a pro DeSantis. Show today. You might be feeling that sentiment. This, for me, is a pro. Where the heck is the Republican Party going to go in the future? Because even if Trump gets in, you're looking at one term. And quite frankly, there are going to be a lot of squishy moderates still within the Republican Party that could literally, if Trump is the nominee, that will and is able to win, that could literally thwart his agenda after 6 months to a year. And so we have to think long term. Where is this party going to go policy wise? Very important. All right, Gabe, let's roll the next clip, por favor. All right, again, we're speaking of the debate between Nikki Haley and Governor Ron DeSantis. Obviously, it was on CNN. Not going to be as popular as as other debates have, no doubt about it. There's a lot of negative press, and I completely understand why. But for me, the reason why, again, this debate was so important was simply because we need to determine the direction of the country in a post-Trump era as well. And when I say post-Trump, again, I'm assuming if he were to become the nominee and wins. Gabe, let's go ahead and put up the next video.
I think the difference between Nikki Haley and me, I listened to all that litany of stuff. I debated the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. I thought he lied a lot. Nikki Haley gives him a run for his money, and she may even be more liberal than Gavin Newsom is. We are in a
and I want to mention something. You guys may have heard Nikki Haley in that last rant. She started off by saying, look at how he demeans. Look at how he demeans. She got extremely emotional. Now, guys, listen, you've watched me. I've lost my composure on air. I'm not even going to lie to you. I want to get that under control. That's one of my resolutions. I need to make sure that I stay composed. Listen, we're fighting for freedom. This is a hard fight. I've never been so angry on the radio until Joe Biden got in office. There was a period of time I wasn't quite on radio yet. I ended up getting in during the latter years of his presidency, Barack Obama. But I've never been so frustrated. I'm literally watching my country being torn down. And now is not the time for squishy moderates. Now is not the time for big government Republicans. And what you saw Nikki Haley do, demean. It was about feelings. And instead of being able to defend her record, as the gentleman from CNN said earlier, instead of being able to defend her record, it was like, oh, go check out this website. Go check out this website. It's because she had come prepared to try to undermine DeSantis rather than tell you why you should vote for her. I have a problem with that. Defend your policies. What are you going to do now, right now, given the circumstances that we find ourselves in? She said when it came to climate change, she didn't like dealing with with the extremes. But there were things that we can do, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, to offset the climate. And so basically, she believes in man-made climate change. We can't have big government Republicans that will get into office and basically kowtow to the left. We'll get to socialism just at a much slower pace. We can't do that anymore, guys. We'll be back in a few. This is the Carl Jackson Show. Welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Guys, please subscribe to my podcast. For those of you that are watching now, we would really appreciate it if you go to Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble. You can subscribe, and you can also review. So if you would give us the highest score possible, I believe that rating is a 5. That would help more people find out about our show. We would certainly appreciate that. So please do that. Also, on all things social media, you can find me at the Carl Jackson Show. Now, Guys, without any further ado, I want to talk about this issue. I think this is very important. A lot of people are saying, listen, headed up to, and a lot of conservatives believe this, heading into 2024, the news for Joe Biden is so bad, and we've talked about this before, when it comes to black and minority voters. He's not doing well. There appears to be an exodus. We won't know this for sure until the elections in November. That is assuming that Joe Biden remains the nominee for the Democrat Party, or on the ballot in 2024. I'm not certain that is going to be that is going to be the case, but because so many blacks seem to be dissatisfied with Joe Biden, and the polling amongst blacks is so bad, a lot of people are assuming that these voters, these black votes, will go to Donald Trump if he is the nominee for the Republican Party. I don't necessarily buy into that. I do believe that if Trump is the nominee, I do believe that if a Governor Ron DeSantis is the nominee, that you will see an uptick in the black vote. I don't think you'll see numbers like 30-40% as some have proclaimed. I think at the top, perhaps you'd see 20%. I'm guessing you'd see anywhere. Trump got 12%. I believe it was in 2020. So I'm guessing you would see anywhere from 12 to 15%. But I'm willing to go as high as 20%, but we'll have to wait and see. And I'll tell you, I'll show you the reason why. Thanks to Gabe here, we have some video. This video is from the influencer, TV personality, radio personality, Charlemagne. He goes by Charlemagne the God. I can't call a man God. I just feel so weird doing that. But Charlemagne. So here's what he had to say in an interview on CNN. And I want you to listen carefully to what he has to say. They were asking him whether or not he regretted his vote for Biden. I thought the answer should be a clear yes, because he came out earlier or late last year and said he thought he was going to be voting for Nikki Haley, to my shock. Anyway, here's what Charlemagne had to say on CNN Newsnight.
Charlemagne, I mean, you made some waves in a recent interview saying that you regret endorsing Joe Biden. Why?
It's not that I regret endorsing Joe Biden. It's just that, I think that we all can get burned, by politicians. Because when I say endorsing, I put my name and my reputation on the line with my listeners. And when my listeners feel like he didn't deliver, they come back to me and they say, hey, man, you're the one who told us to vote for, Joe Biden. You're the one who told us to vote for Kamala Harris. So, I care about my listeners and what my listeners think. But I do want to say that, I think President Biden historically has been a lack of a better word, a shitty elected official. But, Donald Trump is the end of democracy as we know it.
So you'd vote for Biden again?
I'm not saying either or, but I think, since y'all ask answers, because that's what y'all do on CNN, you like to ask answers, like you ask. Well, I mean, what I say is you asked is if Donald Trump was black, would he get locked up? You know the answer to that.
But I mean,
right?
I don't know so you are going to vote for Joe Biden?
I think it's simple and plain. If you, Donald Trump is the end of democracy as we know it. I don't know what to tell people. And I know it sounds, when you say that now in 2024, you've heard it so much because every time, there's a Republican candidate, people say, oh, it's the end of democracy. He's people go so far as to say, oh, he's the Antichrist. But this is one of those times where, it really actually positively is true.
Now, listen. Charlemagne knows that Trump isn't the end of democracy. That's just silly. Trump has been in office. He was in office before. Did he end democracy? Give me a break. This is absolute nonsense. But here's what it is. Charlemagne can't go against his base. And guys, this is just a sad reality. But conservatives and Republicans need to understand this. It is going to take a generation to win black votes and the numbers that some have been suggesting. There's not going to be a bunch of rap videos, conservative rap videos that are going to do it. And I appreciate the people that are in the fight, because I think the numbers are growing, and I think that we are having an impact. But until you get into these communities, until you challenge the narratives within the black communities, you're not going to make much of a difference, because we're brainwashed. Guys, I was there. All you hear about is how racist the Republican Party is. So what I think what we'll likely see is votes of an election of attrition. And by that, as I've explained before, Barack Obama during his reelection received 6 to 7 million fewer votes in his first election. I suspect that's what we will see if Joe Biden remains the nominee for the Democrat Party. If the Democrats switch candidates, I think that number goes right back up, because for many blacks, it's a moral issue. It's not about policy. It's a lot of emotion. And it's a lot of, hey, the Republican Party is racist. This is what blacks have been taught for generations. The Republican parties are the Republicans are the racist. So they don't want to vote for the racist. But at the same token, they don't want to vote for a bad president. All right. So they may just stay home, or they'll vote for an RFK Jr. So that's what I suspect that we'll see. That's my 2 cents. Again, I do believe if Trump is the nominee, he will get 12% or higher. I do believe he'll get more votes. Will he get 30%? I'm not going to blow smoke up your butt. I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, let's go to this. We played this the other day. I want to show you this again. This was a very important story this week. Again, this is James Madison High School in New York City, where students were forced to undergo remote learning. They had to stay at home. It was like, COVID lockdowns part 2 all over again. And we know what the negative impact that had on students: depression, anxiety, suicide rates up, not to mention reading scores, math scores. All of these things dropped precipitously as a result of the lockdowns associated with COVID. But again, just a reminder before I play a video that was absolutely damning this week, where the Democrat Party, a Democrat representative, told you exactly what the Democrat Party is doing with the open border invasion, what they want to do with it, and how they're utilizing it. So we'll share that video. That was from Representative Yvette Clark shortly. But first, let's show this reminder of this mother that is videotaping literally illegal aliens being put into a high school. Let's go ahead and roll this video, Gabe.
Oh, this is cuts. This is beds. They're bringing in food. Why not? Why not? I gotta see where my tax dollars are going. Hold on.
Okay, so that was a mother, again, James Madison High School, New York City, where illegal aliens were being allowed to shelter in place there, or being sent there to shelter in place, and while American students were being kicked out of school. Now, let me show you this video of Representative Yvette Clark from New York. Now, this is she lets the cat out of the bag. This is exactly why Democrats will not stop the illegal invasion at the border. And this is exactly why the Republican Party needs a government, I'm not calling it a shutdown, a government reset. No border security, no budget. Let's roll the video, por favor, Gabe.
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We have a diaspora that can absorb a significant number of these migrants. And when I hear colleagues talk about, the doors of the inn being closed, no room in the inn, I'm saying, I need more people in my district, but just for redistricting purposes. And those members could clearly fit here.
Okay, so she said it loud and clear. They want the illegal aliens in the country. Why? Because they want bigger voting blocks. And not only that, they want more congressional seats. All right. So based upon the census, the more people you represent, and they don't have to be citizens. The census is based upon just sheer numbers, sheer population. So if Democrats will bring illegal aliens in, even into blue states, guess what they get? They get more representatives, and that way they can control Congress. So they're not concerned about you. They're not concerned about overrun hospitals. They're not concerned about overrun schools. They're not concerned about illegal aliens competing with Americans for jobs. They're not concerned about rent going up because you have to compete with illegal aliens for housing. They're not concerned about any of that. Yvette Clark just let it out the bag. They're concerned about power and nothing else. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Please support my sponsor, if you will, mypillow.com. The promo code is Carl. You click on the radio podcast square, or you can give them a call, 800-858-0263. American jobs, American manufacturing, a great night's sleep as well. All you have to do is go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Carl, C-A-R-L. Okay, guys, so now I want to talk, I want to spin this segment, and I want to talk about the persecution of Donald Trump. I also want to talk about Anthony Fauci. He's in the news, and you guys may have saw this stunt that Hunter Biden pulled with his attorney and friend, sugar friend, if you will, or sugar brother, as they say earlier this week. So we'll talk about all those. But first, this was an alert that happened earlier on Fox News. Let's go ahead and roll that video. This is former President Donald Trump responding to the New York case that he's undergoing right now. One of the many cases, by the way. Let's go ahead and roll the video. Por favor, Gabe.
Witch hunt. It's election interference at the highest level. It's a disgrace. It's in coordination with the White House and Joe Biden because he can't win a campaign fairly. And we're going through it, but it is indeed a terrible witch hunt. We're going to have a news conference a little bit later on. As you know, I want to speak. I want to make the summation. At this moment, the judge is not letting me make the summation because I'll bring up things that he doesn't want to hear. And it's a very unfair trial. Nobody's seen anything like this. I don't think they've ever seen anything like this. We have a situation where a statute was used that doesn't give me a jury, so I have no jury. I really have no rights, and it's and nobody thinks it's constitutional. People, legal scholars are writing about it like it's something they've never seen before. So it's interference, it's political interference, and it's something that shouldn't be allowed. So I am hoping to speak and to help my lawyers reveal all of the defects of this case. It should have never been brought. Very, very strong financial statements. They thought it was the opposite. They had no idea because I'm a private company. Then they saw them knock their socks off. You couldn't believe it. But great financial statements. Everything is good. We have a level of detail in our defense that nobody's ever had. This is a case that should have never been brought, and it was brought. And it's very unfair, and it's very bad for New York State. Companies are fleeing. People are fleeing. The streets are crime-ridden. And Letitia James, that's all she thinks about is get Trump. She's been dreaming about it for years, and it's not the way a state should be run. Because this is a state that's been in big trouble. You have all the businesses fleeing, and you have the people fleeing. The people that pay taxes. People that don't pay taxes are coming in, so that's not what you want. So I want to thank you. We're going to have a news conference today around, we don't know the time, we'll notify you, but sometime in the early afternoon at 40 Wall Street. So we'll give a news conference where we can actually speak and have a microphone here, because even that they don't want us to have. They really don't want us to speak too much. So we'll see whether or not the judge allows me to speak. Perhaps he won't, but I certainly would like to. Thank you very much.
Okay, that is the former President Donald Trump speaking out on the witch hunt that exists in New York, and it absolutely is. As a matter of fact, I posted this earlier. You can check out my X space or Twitter. It is at Carl Jackson Shows, where you can find me wherever I am on social media, either at the Carl Jackson Show or at Carl Jackson Show. But Judge Engoron said that Trump could not take time away from what I'm calling his hoax of a trial to mourn the loss of his mother-in-law. Guys, this is the epitome of evil, but we're dealing with communists. They don't want to mess up the timing. Their goal is to make sure that they set the narrative for this entire election season, right? This is election interference. Donald Trump was absolutely right. President Trump was absolutely right on this. And guys, no matter how you feel, it isn't that they're just going after Trump. They're going after you. They're not allowing you to have a choice. And frankly, I would say this even for Nikki Haley, whom I'm not a fan of, DeSantis, Vivek, and everyone else. It's unfair for them to play this political gamesmanship when it comes to the former president, because let's face it, most people are emotionally involved when it comes to Donald Trump. Yes, they loved many of his policies as president, but you could go back and see when his numbers started surging, and it is when these political persecutions started taking place. Donald Trump is absolutely right. Joe Biden is not, nor the Democrats are confident that they could beat Donald Trump in a fair election. They can't beat Nikki Haley even. They can't beat DeSantis. I don't think they could beat any Republican candidate, but they're certainly afraid Biden believes that Donald Trump is the man that he can beat. They want him to be the nominee, but they want to bloody him up as much as they possibly can. It hasn't been working as effectively, but nonetheless, you get emotionally tied into this. And even candidates that would have had a say, instead of having policy debates, you have this. That's what the left wanted. All right. So now, so the left is trying to frame the narrative. This is election interference at its highest, in my point. So now you see the persecution of the former president of the United States, unfairly so, by the communists on the left. Now I want you to watch this stunt that took place earlier this week in a congressional hearing, and I'm going to comment on that. This is Hunter Biden showing up. I believe Democrats knew. I believe this was a complete stunt and setup. Democrats knew that what was going to transpire. The House Judiciary Committee did not know. The Republicans in the House Judiciary Committee did not know. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and roll this video. Por favor, Gabe.
To come answer the committee's questions under oath before the American people. This is at the same time that they stand by the categorical non-compliance of Republican members of Congress, like Mr. Jordan, who have material information about the violent attack.
One moment, the cameras cannot be in the well. Cameras cannot be in the well. Cameras cannot be in the well.
No.
Yeah. Proceed, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Okay, that's Hunter Biden, and actually I should have had some other video lined up for you, but Hunter Biden comes into this congressional hearing, and now remember, he pulled this stunt late last year where he didn't show up or ignored the congressional subpoena last year and didn't show up for his deposition. Now he shows up without the Republicans expecting him. You had Nancy Grace. Is it Nancy Grace? Macy Grace? Nancy Mace. I forget her name, excuse me, but asking questions. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene began to ask him questions as he walked out of the hearing. Guys, this is the epitome of entitlement. I heard it Mace call it white privilege. I don't know that it's white privilege. I believe it's Biden privilege. This guy believes that he's above the law. His father believes that he's above the law. They've been able to get away with absolutely selling out the United States of America, and this is insane. Guys, we have an opportunity to correct the ship in November, and we should do so. I mean, this is insane. This guy, again, the most corrupt president, perhaps Joe Biden, in American history, using his son. No wonder his son is a crackhead. He can get away with anything, and he knows it, especially with a fawning media that is willing to cover up his dad's transgressions. I mean, this is a shame. We're living in crazy times, but we can end this in November, and let's do it. All right. Now, I want to roll this video for you. This is Rand Paul He appeared on Laura Ingram's program on Fox News, and here's what he had to say. They were questioning Dr. Anthony Fauci behind the scenes, and it seems as though Dr. Anthony Fauci forgot his memory. Oh, I forgot to share this. Before we go there. Trump cannot give his own closing argument, the judge says, in his civil trial in New York, too. There's already been plenty of attorneys that have opined on this, and this is just an absolute farce when it comes to free speech. It's insane. All right, but anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and roll this video. This is Rand Paul commenting on Dr. Anthony Fauci and what he had to say behind closed doors as opposed to what he says in the public.
The one thing that's consistent about Anthony Fauci is what he says in private is largely true. What he says in public is largely a lie. When asked about the masks by a fellow co-worker, Sylvia Burwell, he told her the truth. He said the masks don't work because the pores are bigger than the virus.
Their own study revealed that about the influenza virus.
But then in public, he wears 3 masks. In private, he tells his colleagues you don't really need to wear one. It's the same with immunity. It's the same with the vaccines. And it's really the same with gain of function. In private, he said, yes, we're suspicious that the virus was manipulated, looks manipulated, and we know they're doing gain of function in Wuhan. He describes it. That's in a private email. In public, to this day, he still denies that they funded any gain of function research in Wuhan. It's all an entire lie.
It was all a lie. They duped former President Trump. It was all a lie. Deborah Birx, Anthony Fauci, they duped him. Nothing they said worked, and they denied it all. Behind closed doors, they admitted that what they were doing was ridiculous, the stances that they took. But in public, they say the complete opposite. This guy needs to pay for this. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to the Carl Jackson Show. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless.